Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Aguna Vinci. My register number is 70 10 33 20 37. Now I'm going to discuss and present about applied linguistics. The book that I use right now is Applied Linguistics by Wiley. The first one is the Introducing Applied Linguistics. Firstly, before we are going to the material, we have to know what the applied linguistics mean first. I got some definition in here by the International Association of Applied Linguistics, or ILA. ILA said that applied linguistics is an interdisciplinary field of research and practice dealing with practical problems of language and communication that can be identified, analyzed, or solved by applying available theories, methods, or results of linguistics, or by developing new theoretical and methodological frameworks in linguistics to work on these problems. Okay, next is applied linguistics as a problem-solving approach. At the general level, we can draw three implications from this. The first one is the applied linguist is a jack of all trades. It means that real-world language problems can seldom be resolved by looking at a single aspect of language. The second one is the applied linguist is a go-between, not an enforcer, a servant, not a master. The problems that applied linguistics can deal with are complex and multifaceted. As a consultant to other people, applied linguists can contribute their own interpretation and advice. The last one is the sheer description of any area of language is not applied linguistics as such, but descriptive linguistics. Some areas concerned with the description of language are regarded as applied linguistics, others are not. Okay, next is doing applied linguistics, methodological considerations. Whatever methodology you choose to adopt, there are certain steps you need to take in conducting a research project. These typically include: first, defining the research question or questions. The second one is collecting evidence. The third, analyzing and presenting findings. Defining the research questions. Defining the research question is a crucial first step. The question has to be researchable, which means that there are potentially different answers to it. There is evidence available for you with which to answer the questions. A good literature review serves two closely related purposes. The first is to make the reader understand why you are doing what you are doing in the way you are doing it. And two, to prepare your own argument. It should cover the following questions: what has been done, what are the questions asked by the other researchers, and so on and so on. Okay, next is research design. It is often said that a research project only really begins when one starts to collect evidence or data. Many students are anxious about the amount of data they collect and whether the data have collected is good enough. To ensure that the data you have is of sufficient quantity and quality, you need to consider carefully a number of design issues. The first and foremost is, given the research questions or theory, what type of evidence is needed to answer the questions? Okay, next is data collection. The data that applied linguists are interested in can be broadly identified into categories: interactional and non-interactional data. Okay, next is analyzing and presentation findings. Data analysis follows closely from research design. It is advisable to consider how you intend to analyze and present the findings during the design stage of the research process before you start collecting the data. Quantitative data are most often analyzed through statistics and presented in various figures, tables and graphs and diagrams. There are ample guidebooks for students on how to do quantitative and statistical data analysis. Qualitative data, on the other hand, are usually presented in discursive accounts with quotations and sample of actual data. Last is ethical consideration. As applied linguistics research often involves human subjects, ethical considerations are crucial. These include: the first one is justification. The proposed research will achieve worthwhile objectives and the time and resources needed for the research are justifiable. The next is access to participants. This includes issues of participants' privacy, the need to reduce invasiveness of the presence of research, issues of confidentiality and anonymity, and so on. The third one is informed consent. When seeking consent, participants need to be fully informed about the aim and nature of the project and any potential risks. Other ethical concerns relevant to studies in applied linguistics include: the first one is participants' language ability. The next one is cross-cultural differences in ethics. Next material is about quantitative, qualitative, or both, combining methods in linguistic research. The first one, I'm going to tell you about what is quantitative research. Quantitative research is perhaps the simpler to define and identify. The data produced are always numerical and they are analyzed using mathematical and statistical methods. If there are no numbers involved, then it's not a quantitative research. Sources of quantitative data. The most common sources of quantitative data include: the first one is survey. Whether conducted online, by phone, or in person, this rely on the same questions being asked in the same way to a large number of people. The second one is observations, which may either involve counting the number of times that a particular phenomenon occurs, such as how often a particular word is used in interviews, or coding observational data to translate it into numbers. And the last one is secondary data, such as company accounts. And next is analyzing quantitative data. There are a wide range of statistical techniques available to analyze quantitative data, from simple graphs to show the data through tests of correlation between two or more items, to statistical significance. Other techniques include cluster analysis, useful for identifying relationships between groups of subjects where there is no obvious hypothesis, and hypothesis testing, to identify whether there are genuine differences between groups. Next is qualitative research. Qualitative research is any which does not involve numbers or numerical data. It often involves word or language, but may also use pictures and photographs and observations. Almost any phenomenon can be examined in qualitative way, and it is often the preferred method of investigation in the UK and the rest of Europe. US studies tend to use quantitative methods, although this distinction is by no means absolute. Qualitative analysis results in rich data that gives an in-depth picture, and it is particularly useful for exploring how and why things have happened. However, there are some pitfalls to qualitative research, such as if respondents do not see a value for them in research, they may provide inaccurate or false information. Although ethics are an issue for any type of research, there may be particular difficulties with qualitative research because the researcher may be party to confidential information. The last one is it is generally harder for qualitative researchers to remain apart from their work. Sources of qualitative data. There are five sources of qualitative data. The first one, interviews. The next one is focus groups. The third one is postcards or small-scale written questionnaires. The fourth one is secondary data. The fifth is observation. Next is analyzing qualitative data. Because qualitative data are drawn from a wide variety of sources, they can be radically different in scope. There are therefore a wide variety of methods for analyzing them, many of which involve structuring and coding the data into groups and teams. There are also a variety of computers packaged to support qualitative data analysis. The best way to work out which ones are right for your research is to discuss it with academic college and your supervisor. Next is combining qualitative and quantitative methods. In practice, most researchers agree that combining quantitative and qualitative techniques, sometimes called mixed method research, produce a richer and more comprehensive understanding of a research area. For example, an investigation into the relationship between the spread of cholera and household water use would require that you use quantitative approaches to identify both cholera cases and to measure water quantity in a cohort of an appropriate size. However, when designing an intervention, it will be critical to understand what influences water availability in the community and the choices people make in times of water stress. This kind of in-depth understanding is well suited to qualitative approaches. Together, this combined approach provides a more comprehensive understanding of the risk relations between water availability and the spread of cholera in the community under study. I think that's all from me. Thanks for all attention and sorry for all the mistake that I made. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.